Hi, I'm Arsen head buyer here at the Boulder Bookstore, and I want to show you one of my favorite corners of the bookstore. It's the very first corner you see when you walk into the store. I actually think a lot of people don't see it because you come in, you've been told about you have to wear your mask, and that we don't have cash, we don't have bathrooms, which has already sent 50% of the people into a panic. But so you walk in, and before you know it, you're into the store looking at the recommended books, which are over there. But to your left when you walk in are a couple special sections and a new feature at the store courtesy of the Boulder Public Library. So I thought I'd talk to you about these sections. So these two sections are Europa Publishing on the left and the New York Review of Books, both the classic editions here on the right. And we put these up front because I think it says a lot about what we believe in, and that is, I'm a big believer in fiction. I love fiction writing, but also that we want to have all sorts of different viewpoints, new and old. And so Europa is dedicated to bringing to American audiences originally European voices. That has expanded some, and you'll see the books by Asian authors, even an American author or two, but they're pretty, can be eclectic books. They're uniformly very good. The editor, Michael Reynolds, the publisher, is really a smart guy, great guy, and has really figured out what of the European market can work well in the United States. And their biggest success was the Elena Ferrante books. And so I'm going to show you a few of their books, and then we'll move on to New York Review of Books. So we'll start with My Brilliant Friend, Elena Ferrante, and this is part of her Neapolitan Quartet. These are just great, great novels, and Europa's published all her books, and they're sweeping, they're realistic, they're just beautifully done. Some people have seen the TV show based on them now. And Europa was the publisher that introduced this amazing writer to American audiences. And when you think of the publishing landscape with all these gigantic publishers out there looking for material, it's really impressive that a small publisher is the one who brought us perhaps the most important books of the last 10 years. One of my favorite Europa titles is Mad Boy, and I read this because Nick Harvin lives in Denver, and I was like, why is Nick Harvin being published through Europa? This is a great, funny, almost surreal look at the War of 1812, which nobody really writes about in novel form. And Europa just thought it was a wonderful book, and it wasn't getting picked up by American publishers, so they did it, and lo and behold, it won the Colorado Book Award. And so I would highly recommend Nick Harvin's Mad Boy, and I thank Europa for publishing it. One of the things they do is they bring mystery books from around the world to the American market, and I really think they do Italian mysteries particularly well. This is Cold for the Bastards of Pizzo Falcone? Julia will correct it, I'm sure, once this video is edited. So, this is by Maurizio Di Giovanni, and it's just a hard-boiled, they do a lot of hard-boiled mysteries, which I kind of like, these kind of investigators and, gritty streets. And this author is from Naples as well as Ferrante, and it's just another look at that city, and they do all sorts of these world noir mysteries, and I think if you like mysteries, it's worth checking out, something different. And then the latest book they've done, which is kind of a sensation, is Miyako Kawakami's Breasts and Eggs. She's an Asian writer, she's Japan, and this novel came out in Japan about 15 years ago. And this is the first English translation of this really important book in Japan. It was probably the top award winners, did all sorts of acclaim there, but again, the American publishers didn't bring it over. So this is the first English translation now 10 to 15 years later. It's also an expanded edition. She went in and she actually wrote a bit more after time went by. She re-looked at the book, so I think that's very interesting. So that's Europa. We've got the books right here. There's about 18 on this shelf. They're also scattered in through the store. Every season we get 5 or 6 new ones and we swap things out. But if you like international fiction, you want something different, I would definitely recommend it. So now we're going to go to the New York Review of Books. These are more classics, but they're classics from around the world. books that you won't find in the Modern Library or Penguin Classics or any of the other big publishers. Now, some of them have been published by big publishers in the past but have been dropped. So I wanted to point out a few of my favorites from there. One is Stoner. Stoner, he was by John Williams, and Williams taught at the University of Denver. This is a great novel written in the, I believe, early 60s about a university professor and how his career is kind of slowly petering out. And it's just considered a modern classic, and New York Review of Books is the one who kind of rediscovered it and brought it back. They've also brought back John Williams' other books, so you can check out almost anything by this kind of legendary author who has that Colorado connection. One of my wife's favorite classic Italian authors is Natalia Ginzburg. This book is the latest one they've published. She's been dead for quite a while, so these aren't like nude books, but this is Valentino and Sagittarius. And she writes very realistic fiction. Sometimes fiction and essay, she'll mix genres. So it's not quite clear if it's a memoir, if it's fiction, but really a fascinating writer coming out of kind of World War II era Italy. The Hearing Trumpet, which I've dipped my toes into, is a true work of surrealism. Carrington knew Salvador Dali, she knew Buñuel, and this book, there's just so many crazy things that go on in this book. There is a man-made apocalypse, which we might be sort of living through now, but in this book, it truly is the apocalypse. And I think, she's an undiscovered voice, somebody lost. And I can't help but think that when you think about the surrealists, you get this list of men, but there were women in the movement, and New York Review of Books has recently put this out, highlighting one of the most important women in the surrealist movement. And then finally, I want to talk about Stalingrad by Vasily Grossman. He was born in Ukraine, and this is the epic book, 900-page book. This is the first English translation of one of the great books of European literature. This is kind of the war and peace of the Battle of Stalingrad, where it shows you from all different angles this battle, which was 1942, and how really led to the demise of Hitler, and just how engrossing this battle was for the soldiers, for the civilians, for everybody involved. And he just does a wonderful job. Grossman probably would have been killed by Stalin, but as Stalin, this book was published to great acclaim in the early 50s, late 40s, but by 52 they had soured on it, and Grossman was in the eyes of the KGB at that point in time. But luckily for him, Stalin died before they got to him, so he was able to live out his life until into the 60s. But really a great, great work of literature that hasn't really had exposure to American audiences before. So that's our two sections up front. I hope you look at them. I know it's a little hard now because we're trying to wave people into the store and but if you have a moment and you can look at some of these books, I highly recommend them. They're well edited, they're well designed, they're well chosen. You're going to get a good book. And so the last thing in this corner I want to talk about is something brand new. I'm not sure how long we're going to have it. We're having it for a little while. It's on loan from the Boulder Library Foundation, and it's a short story dispenser. So you push a button and a short story pops out. So we're going to try it. I'm going to hit the general public. You also have for kids or in Spanish. And it's actually touch-free. You don't touch it. I didn't realize that. All right. Okay, let's see. Hope Against Hope by Howie Good. I have seen this movie before. I know how it ends, with troops in the streets and the charred bones of buildings. So I turn away from the ruthless images and just as quietly as I can, lean on the railing of the back deck and wait for the gray fox to appear from the dark, tangled underbrush into an evanescent strip of bright sunlight. That's very nice. The beginning kind of scared me a little bit with the troops in the streets. I think we had enough of that back in like January, but anyway, come visit, get your own personal short story, and thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You can subscribe here and get all sorts of great videos. Thank you very much.